We were expecting 2013 to be an epic fire season due to drought, lack of precipitation, and volatile fuel conditions. But fire danger decreased due to some late spring storms and a strong summer monsoon in the southwest.
Going into fire season 2013, with the conditions that we had been seeing over the previous couple of years and the very rapid drying conditions we saw at the beginning of the year in the west, we expected to see a fairly significant fire season, particularly across the West Coast states. Going up into December, we had pretty good precipitation across the west, good snowfall across the Sierras and in the interior mountains. But something happened in January where everything just kind of shut off. We were seeing huge deficits that, as we headed into the spring months, were going to be very critical to the kind of fire season that we were going to get. So areas like Colorado and Wyoming, where they had a pretty good snowpack, it was gone pretty quickly, and so they were starting out in a very warm and dry condition earlier in the spring. That's when we started seeing fires developing in the Front Range of Colorado.
The Black Forest fire started on June 11th in Black Forest, Colorado. It burned 14,280 acres, destroyed over 500 homes, and resulted in 2 civilian fatalities. This was the most destructive wildfire in Colorado's history.
Moving into the summer months, June, July, and August, which is the core of the western fire season, we were already starting with some very dry conditions across most of the west. The global circulation patterns was fairly neutral, so we didn't have a clear signal about what kind of weather patterns we were going to see throughout the summer. What we ended up seeing, though, was a very defined split between very warm and dry conditions in the west and very cool and wet conditions in the east. As we continued to move into the summer, we had some fires developing across the southwest that, while they weren't extremely large fires, they were difficult fires to deal with because of the extremely dry fuel conditions there. Meanwhile, up in Alaska, the same very warm and dry conditions that were affecting the western United States were also affecting Alaska in very unusual ways. They were seeing near record temperatures across a large portion of the state. That extended their fire season from its usual July period all the way into August. But generally, we didn't have a lot of widespread fire activity in June and July.
On June 30th, 19 firefighters were killed on the Yarnell Hill fire. They were members of the Prescott Fire Department's Granite Mountain Hotshots. This resulted in the highest wildland firefighter death toll since 1933.
As we got into August, we were starting to see a lot of fire across the northwestern United States that, while weren't tremendously big fires as we'd seen in previous years, they were significant in that in some cases they were threatening communities, producing a lot of smoke, and just generally creating a significant fire problem over a period of time. As we got into mid to late September, significant amounts of rainfall had occurred across the west and were quickly putting the fire season to an end. There were some very dry conditions across California that we had been monitoring all year, but they never had any significant weather events that would drive a lot of fire until we got into September. The extremely dry conditions down around the southern parts of California led to the Rim Fire, which was the largest fire of the season.
The Rim Fire started August 17th near Yosemite National Park. This wildfire, California's third largest, burned almost 260,000 acres and was contained on October 24th.
At the end of the season, we only had just over 40,000 fires across the U.S., which is about 2/3 of our normal, and burned just over 4 million acres, which is just a little bit more than half of what we normally see in a typical fire season. A lot of this was largely due to the fact that some of the interior fires, the Great Basin fires, that are oftentimes very large acre fires, didn't materialize this year for a couple of reasons. The extended drought conditions across the interior west, while producing very extreme fire conditions, we did not have the fuel loadings that typically carries a lot of fire there. Another factor was during the core of the fire season, June, July, and part of early August, We didn't have a lot of lightning events in areas where we typically see a lot of lightning starts. We also didn't see a lot of acreage and fires in the southeast, where we often get a lot of fires, but not a significant amount of acres.
Although 2013 was a below average year in terms of fires and acres burned, it is important to note as we move into the 2014 season that a slow season can be just as hazardous as a busy one.